Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Wish you happy day today and happy weekend, inshallah. Today I have to thank one of my friends on the Facebook. His name is Ahmed Al-Heet, who suggested that we can have a question and answer session. And Ahmed Al-Heet is a worker, trainer with direct aid in Sudan. Thank you, Brother Ahmed Al-Heet, and we took your advice. Before we start discussing this, I call it politicization and militarization of humanitarian aid, or humanitarian organizations. Okay, let me take you with me in a journey to let us know how the development of the government development agencies in the West. Next one. If we look at this slide, France, Norway, Switzerland, United States of America, Britain, and Denmark and others, those people in these countries respected two things. First is the contribution of the citizen of their country, whom they went to Africa, Asia, China, Latin America, anywhere, to help people, whether they are missionaries or not missionaries. And they realized the power and the strength of the soft power of humanitarian response. That's why they took the idea from the individual contribution to make it departments, to make it after that ministries, governmental ministries, and billions and billions and billions of dollars. Why? Because those governments believe in the soft power of the humanitarian work. The French development agencies related reporting to the Foreign Office of France, and this is 1944. The Norwegian Agency for Development, it is, when it works outside the country, it is reporting its work to the Foreign Office, but when it's work with the climate inside Norway, it reports to the Ministry of Climate and the Environment. This is 1960. Swiss Development Corporation, 1961. Governed by the Foreign Office of Switzerland. USAID, 1961 as well, at the time of John Kennedy. Reporting to whom? It's an independent agency, but taking the guidance of the President, the State Department, Secretary of State, as well as the National Security Council. It's not under the government. DFID started as a directorate in 1961, then became a part of the Ministry of Overseas Development Administration, 1970, then became itself Overseas Development Administration, 1997, then DFID in 1997 became a ministry, which is during the Labour government. The NIDA, which is a Danish International Development Agency, reporting to the Foreign Office, 1962, second one please. SIDA, Swedish, 1965, reporting to the Foreign Office. SIDA, Canada, 1968, the Parliament, reporting to the House of the Parliament. JICA in Japan, reporting to the Foreign Office. GTZ, the German one, become GIZ, started 1975, but 2011 became GIZ. Okay? And reporting to the Ministry of Economic Development and Cooperation. Spanish corporation as well, 1988, reporting to the Foreign Office. Those people believe in the soft power of the humanitarian work. That's why they changed the individual contribution into ministries, departments, and billions and billions and billions of dollars of contribution from the countries. So when we look at their donation to United Nations, or their donation to European Union, or their donation to your organization, of course, it will be governed by their foreign policy. It will be governed by foreign policy, whether we like it or not. You want to become independent? Depend on the individual donor. Two organizations, I can mention the name today, MSF, Medicine Sans Frontières, as well as World Vision. They said we don't take money from government. They're independent. They are vocal. They can work anywhere. But there is no humanitarian contribution from a government without political aim or policy from such a government. Even when you get some money from certain groups, they put their policy and their political view on the fund they give you. Militarization. Militarization as a question was after Afghan war with the Soviet. It started to be like a question or an era coming from the far west, from America, to give this soft power to the military forces in different parts of the world. This could be a counterproductive, could be extremely serious, because in some cases in Afghanistan, the rebels in this area were attacking any Western organization from such a country. So you risk the life of the humanitarian worker, you risk the existence of the organization. But one of the problems here is militarization in the Arab countries and others is where you get generals, you get brigadiers, colonels to run humanitarian organizations. It is absolutely unacceptable. This does not say that we do not respect the military, but it's not their job. The philosophy of understanding the humanitarian work is so vast, so diverse, so inclusive. And the military has superiority, hands-on, order, top-down approach. It doesn't work with the community. Even with the security, which is the police forces, when they run this kind of humanitarian organization, they are microscopic with a suspicion eye. You know why? Because they are always look for criminals. And this is their job. And this is the occupational hazard that we're talking about. So this actually will be quite serious if we actually let this organization, the humanitarian sector, be run by the security, securitization, or by the military. Okay. Second question is, are humanitarian organizations having transparent organizational structure? All the organizations have their structure. But are we following the structures? I can take you to some of the organization putting the chart, the monogram of the organization. But are we following it? Is any level of this structure have a job description of the department, job description of the division, job description of the desk, not even to say job description of the individual whom we are employing him or her. Quite nice to have this. It's debatable. And I know a lot of organizations, they have beautiful structures, but it's not implemented. And no job description for any level of such a structure. Serious, and this could be everywhere. Or there's a job description, but no one is following it. Second one, Can the current organizational structures meet the changing needs of the needy and provide a working, suitable climate to meet people's and organizational needs? This means high level of thinking, broad-mindedness, not top-down approach, not hands-on policy, not nepotism, or get the people who trust and ignore the people who are vocal. No. If you need to have to let your organization to meet the changing need of any community is on the spot, happening day in and day out. So if you don't have those kind of expert, broad-minded, flexible, visionary people who can accommodate the opinions of whom? Of the local community. The opinion of whom? Of the local field officer. The desk officer in London and in New York should not behave as a god. The desk officer in Kuwait, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, as a donor or emirate should not behave like a god. The field officer in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Palestine, any part, South Sudan, everywhere, is the one who should have the upper hand and should be listened to. That's why if we don't have this kind of flexible mind, broad-minded with a vision, we will never be able to meet the needs of the needy. How can you provide a suitable climate if you don't understand what the climate is about? We're quite often in Europe, we're quite often in the Middle East, as donor countries, we get somebody who can have a PhD, who can have a master. But for me, is a dead meat. Why? Because they don't understand the climate of work, whether in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and others. Needless to say, the organizational humanitarian climate in the headquarters. If you get the wrong people, because they are your own friends, or because they are national citizen, you get nowhere. You have to get the best of the community, whether they are national or foreigners. Are there any policies to guarantee the continuity of vibrant response of the organization and keep its viability in the program? This means alternative leadership. A system should allow a term in office. Sometimes the term in office means that I employ somebody for 3 years, for 5 years. The board member or the trustees have to serve for 3 years, or 4 years, or 5 years. 1 term or 2 terms, and after that, thank you. But we can find in certain organizations that the board members, which are the trustees, serve for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, and to give permanent job to people that you cannot sack or you cannot change. If you want this vibrant organization to exist, you have to train the youngsters from within the system of the organization. To make the quality leadership is coming from within. To allow the program to have this volunteerism in the community and to pick and choose the best of the youth after being qualified to do the job and give him the scope to grow. And give him the scope to grow, and when he or she grow, they'll become the best manager, the good manager, and others. Send all those youngsters to where? Not to London, not to Paris, not to Kuwait, not to Jeddah, not to Dubai, not to New York, not to Washington. Send them to Juba. Send them to Kabul. Send them to Mogadishu. Send them to Bamako. Send them to Gaza. Send them to Aleppo. Send them to South Africa. Send them to Kampala, where those youth become real hands-on leaders. If you want your organization to become vibrant. If you want your organization to become vibrant, you have to get women and youth inside the structure of the organization. Most of the organizations that I know don't have women in the leadership, don't have women in the board, don't have even youth in the board. Here, you will never become vibrant and to be able to respond to the needs of the community. So it is the contribution of youth and women, the field experience, and the connectivity with different communities. Next, please. I mentioned this earlier. Is there organizational plans for leadership change? This should be a basic fact in the structure of any organization. At my age now, I will never be able to do what I have been doing 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Never. I was legging, running, flying, going here and there. I was hands-on as a manager to try to be sure that everything is done. Okay? But nowadays, I have to use my expertise to do some other job. If we allow the youth to grow, if we give them a space to grow, if we nurture them, if those young qualified people know that in a few years' time they become manager, directors, CEO, and so on, so they will stay to become leaders. They should be nurtured and mentored by senior people in the organization. We should spend on capacity building. We should spend on mentoring. We should spend on research. So those youngsters will become the future leader. So have a program, a budget for future leaders from within the organization. Next, please. Is there a self-sustained local fundraising plans to meet the local needs? Yes, there is. I gave you some examples from different parts of the world. One of the best examples that you can celebrate is Edie, Rahmatullah alayhi, may Allah bless his soul, from Pakistan. Very simple man, not from a very wealthy family, from a very simple family. But he had the Edie Foundation. Everybody knows now Edie Foundation, Pakistan and globally. Muhammad Yunus in Bangladesh, another poor country, was Grameen Bank. Muhammad Yunus from Bangladesh. Yes, they managed to do that. We need many Muhammad Yunus. We need many Edie. Rahmatullah alayh. In Egypt, somebody called what's his name? مهندس اسماعيل اللي مات قريب ده. I can't remember his name now, but he started from nothing. تفاهنا الأشراف. He was in a village called Tafahna al-Ashraf, and from there he managed to help many people with millions of pounds. But his name is I can't recall his name nowadays. Those people came from a very poor community. You know why they succeeded? They succeeded because the community trusted them and respected them. The community trusted them and respected them. You know why? Because they were honest, sincere believers in their mission. Yes, we can make a local fundraising and sustainable fundraising. And different, you find them in Sudan, but nobody is celebrating their success. Found them in Ghana, in Guinea, and everywhere. Everywhere. Promote the success of the local community, promote the success of the local achievers. Next, please. I'm just looking at the time, it's still about 5-10 minutes. Is there this is okay, we're done this one. And if you want to be self-sustained, depend on the local contribution. No matter how big or small the contribution. And grow slowly, progressively. Slowly and progressively. Many people in Pakistan, in India, in Bangladesh, in Africa, in China have managed to do it. And they are successful, and they are very successful. Next, please. Coming back to the first slide of the soft power till he get the slides back, slideshow back. If we want to be an independent organization, as I mentioned, you have to depend on the small contribution of the individual themselves. We show how the West believed in the soft power of their organization. Unfortunately, nowadays, in our countries, from where we came, they closed down the organization. They accused them of becoming radical, of becoming terrorist organization. That's what the difference between the mentality who run here and who run there. They led the media to trash them. And this is very serious nowadays. They employ people to make a research to find any suspected mistake which might have been done unintentionally 20, 30 years ago. And here we go. And the media will bark on you, will bark on you. Will bark, not park, will bark. How on you. Coming back to the presentation, what is the role of donor organization from rich countries? Only to meet the humanitarian need of the people, or to develop local community, or to invest in human resources. Most of the organization from the East, the donor country, unfortunately, fit the first one. Humanitarian response, emotional response, no planning, no long-term vision. I can give you an example. The famine in Somalia in 2011 led us, all of us, to call for building wells. Building wells is a short term. It's not a long term. And it takes the water from the reservoir of the land, or reserve of the land, from the reserve of the land. The real development program for the drought is to build dams. Every year it rains in this area, and billions of cubic meters of water go to the ocean because we don't have dams. And this is the humanitarian needs for the moment. Emotional. Today is Somalia, tomorrow something else. Yalla, carry on. As we are dealing with the lives of people as carry on boys or carry on girls. The second, develop the local community. I challenge many organizations, whether they are from the West or from the East, to apply the second one. Well, still, this local community is depending on the donation of Western and Eastern organizations. Because what we have nowadays is humanitarian colonialism. Humanitarian colonialism. You have to stretch your hand. I give you the hand out. I don't give you the technology. That's why one of the outcome of the World Humanitarian Summit, June this year, last year is localization. And this long-term investment is developed the local community. The second one, invest in human resources. Whether this human resources in your country or in the poor country. You can't keep some employees working for you for 20 years without any training. Then you sack them with the new management come and say, yes, go home. You are a waste of time. I'm not a waste of time. You are the waste of time. You know why? Because you gave me the job 20 years ago and you never trained me. You never advised me. You never actually developed me. So, invest in human resources, develop local community, as well as meet the need. And you have to divide the cake from the day one at the time of humanitarian response. You don't spend all the money that you have on handout or humanitarian response. But you have to get about 25 to 35% of this at the time of emergency on development local community as well as human resources. Okay? Next, please. What is the organizational capital? Technology, advancement. What's the second one? Quite few. There are three. There are three. I think he did not write the other two. Technology, advancement, financial growth, or fieldwork experience. Technology is something that you can buy, but you might not be able to use. Many rich organizations have got the top technology in the rooms, and they show it as a piece of show to the visitors. And they take a photograph with it. Unless you know how to use the technology, don't buy it. It's number one. It's a part of the capital. The second one, financial growth. Yes, it is. It's an indicator. It's an indicator, but it's not a growth. Because growth must be multidimensional. One of which is the financial growth. People sometimes keep saying, yes, we're 20 million last year, or 30 million. Yeah, but what is your mentality and your intellectual capability? What's the strength in your program? In the field and in the HQ. Field experience is the top. So if we look at the three of them, field experience, which means that you have a strong program. You have community buying in of your program. You have delivered a product to the community that the community is actually happy with it. It's number one. We can achieve this one even with less resources. I remember the good old days 35 years ago, or 33 years ago, 34 years ago, when we had no money in Islamic relief. We also no resources. But we managed to start with the seed of the idea in Sudan, in east of Sudan, in Bangladesh, in Malawi, and let it grow. And the resources came later on. So to conclude today, why I call this question and answer session Politicization and Militarization is about values, about principles, and about morality. So thank you very much for being with me today. Tomorrow inshallah the same time we'll do it in Arabic. غدا ان شاء الله هتكون الكلمة بتاعت اللي هو تسييس وعسكرة المعاملة الإنساني، والسؤال والجواب لنا غدا ان شاء الله الساعة 11:30 بتوقيت مكة، الساعة 11:30 بتوقيت لندن، 1:30 بتوقيت مكة. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.